and we will go ahead and get started. Um, we have now, I believe this is going to be lesson number 15. We've done 15 lessons on the topic of forgiveness, and I think we have at least two more. I think we have at least two more. If you have particular angles on the topic of forgiveness that we have not looked at yet, please bring them to my attention. I'd be happy to dig into this. But here we are, lesson 15. And as I was preparing, I'm thinking this might be the most exciting lesson that we've done so far. Now, there's been a lot of hard lessons as we have gone through the study of forgiveness, but I thought this may be the most exciting. And why would I call a lesson on forgiveness exciting? And I would say because if we understand this, if we can understand this lesson today, and if we could take it a step further, if we can embrace this lesson today, I think that the capacity and potential to see the hand of God at work in our lives just becomes so outrageously possible. It's probably more than what we could. It's probably more than what we could imagine, right? So when we think about forgiveness, it's the intentional release of an offense, or it's the intentional release of a debt that we believe we are owed. Right? And when we refuse when we refuse to forgive, what we do is we limit what God can do through us, and we limit what God does in us. But if we were to forgive, what we do is we remove those limitations. Now, I want to start out, because as we put this together, I have a couple of verses here that I think that you're familiar with. If you will turn with me to the Gospel of John, chapter 14. That's where we're going to start today. We're going to start out with the words of Jesus. Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says to them, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going." Now, have you heard this passage before? Is this new to anybody? Anybody that this is first time hearing it? We've heard this idea that Jesus is going to go and he is going to prepare a place for us. Isn't that encouraging? Isn't that an encouraging thing? Jesus, as he points us to our future, what he does is he tells us the future that I'm preparing for you is intentional. He is doing something to intentionally prepare your future. And God is moving us towards that future. He's not merely just, he's not just taking you away from something. There's something special. There's someplace special that he is going. It is a prepared place. Now, as I was preparing, I thought, as I was getting this lesson done, I thought, where else have I heard about Jesus preparing? And I got to thinking of the Psalm of the Good Shepherd, Psalm 23. Psalm 23, just look at verse 5. We'll look at the first part of verse 5. And I just want to draw your attention to something, because I think there's something here that at least made me pause for a moment. Verse 5, Psalm 23, verse 5 reads, "You prepare a table." Now, if Jesus was going to go prepare a place for you, would he not have a table as part of that preparation? Maybe he has a chair, maybe he has a bed. I don't know what all, maybe he has a guard. I don't know what all he has, but I'm going to suggest that if he's going to go and do something, part of that preparation is going to be a table. And in Psalm 23, David writes to us, he says, "You prepare a table for me." Where? In the presence of my enemies. Who, who are these enemies? Who do you, like, let me ask you right now. If you were to make a list, if I said, take out a blank piece of paper, make a list of your enemies, can you put anybody on that list? Now, like, I can tell you're all a holy bunch here. I can tell. You probably would struggle to put some names on this. But I'm going to suggest that there's some people that you may not like somehow, somewhat, some way. I think that there's probably some limitations on some folks out there, right? I'm going to suggest that there may be some people that you don't get along with. That somehow there is something about these people that offend you. And if they offend you, we have the opportunity to forgive these people. We've talked about that, right? We need to forgive somebody who has given offense to us. I'm going to suggest that your enemies, the table that is prepared for you in the presence of your enemies, that your enemies are people that you need to forgive. Now, I think it's also interesting to note here that God gives us provision and He gives us invitation for fellowship with Him even before we've done that, right? Even before we have been rectified and we've had these issues with our enemies resolved. But an enemy is not necessarily someone who we set out to oppose, but somebody who is somehow connected to an offense. And that offense may be real, it may be perceived, right? It may be intentional, it may be unintentional. It could be something that we did to them or something that they did to us. And there is some offense, there is some conflict. Now, I think I started sharing this with you last week, and I'm 50 years old and I'm trying to grow up. It ain't going that well. I have my struggles. I think I shared with you that I started coaching third and fourth grade boys. I don't know what I was thinking. It is something else. But I got a text message from a third and fourth grade coach in Cambridge Springs. Now, if you know who the coach is there, I don't even remember the name. We haven't talked yet. We just exchanged some text messages. But like whenever I was in junior high and high school, I actually thought that the people in Cambridge Springs were just inherently evil for being in Cambridge Springs. That was like, Sarah, I know Brian doesn't like people from Union City. It's just that I just know that, right? Derek is Cambridge, Brian's Union City, right? There's just some people based on where they're from we don't like. We have an offense. I had enough, and now I'm getting this text message, and keep in mind, Cambridge Springs mascot is the Blue Devil, right? Like you couldn't be more evil than to have devil as your mascot, right? And so like I'm having this text message and I'm feeling a little dirty, like going back and forth, but I'm like, you know what? We're trying to invest in these youngsters. Like and I realize that like I have these barriers that have set. Now, again, you're more sophisticated than me. You're for whatever. If you have life figured out better than me, I need to learn from you. But like this is a lesson that I'm learning myself. right? It's like, huh, I recognize that I have this hesitation. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, right? You know, but you know, when we have these unresolved offenses, they they tend to calcify. They tend to harden into this place of being of unforgiveness. And unforgiveness will quietly shape how we see people. Unforgiveness will quietly reshape how we see people. And we'll see them as enemies rather than image bearers of God. Interesting story. Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 through 15. I'm sure you've all heard this before. The disciples have asked Jesus, how is it that we should pray? Jesus says, starting in verse 9, he says, this then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread and, underline this next word, forgive. I lost my place, losing all my impact here, right? Verse 12, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Circle both those words, forgive and forgiven. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Verse 14, for if, that's a condition, if you forgive other people when they sin against you, even if they live in the wrong town, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. If then, it's condition, cause and effect. If you forgive other people, God will forgive you. Verse 15. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. I like the part about daily bread, and I like the part about lead us not into temptation, but this forgiveness part's a little hard. It's a little hard. That's just me. Maybe that's the easy part for you. Jesus tells us as he teaches us how to pray, how important it is to practice forgiveness. And Jesus tells us that God's forgiveness of us is linked to how we forgive other people. And I want to be clear that this is not like this isn't how you earn grace, but this is how you align yourself with God. This is how we show, this is how we become the hands and feet of Christ, right? Is that we come out and we forgive, right? That's what it's to do. And we are challenged to do that. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's very, very hard. I would suggest to you that we're not forgiven by God because we forgive, but our unwillingness to forgive blocks our ability to live and receive forgiveness as we go forward. It becomes a limitation. Now, it's interesting that Jesus is teaching his disciples about this. And if you go ahead a couple of chapters to Matthew chapter 18, we have this important story. Now, I would hazard a guess if you've been in the church for any amount of time, you've probably heard a story like this before. Matthew 18, verses 23 through 35. Story goes, then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, or I guess I'm going to pick up at 23. Therefore, Jesus is speaking, therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold was brought to him. That sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot. Sounds like a pretty big debt, does it not? 10,000 bags of gold. Verse 25. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt. At this, the servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, he begged, and I will pay everything back. The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. What a wonderful story. Can you see yourself in that story? Can you see yourself in this part of the story? Master comes back. You owe the master quite a bit. You realize you've done some things. You're in debt to the master, and you say, hey, be patient with me. I'm trying to figure this out. Master says, okay, debt's forgiven. Notice what the servant does next. Verse 28. But when the servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. Apparently, that's less than a bag. He grabbed him and began to choke him. Pay back what you owe me, he demanded. His fellow servant fell on his knees and begged him, be patient with me and I will pay it back. Don't miss the pattern here. Don't miss this. The same words that he had given the master, the servant gives to him. Verse 30 says, but he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. I don't know about you, but I don't know how being in prison allows you to pay the debt. I haven't figured that one out. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were outraged and went and told their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. You wicked servant, he said, I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you? In anger, his master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he could pay back all he owed. Verse 35, Jesus says, this is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. That one resonate a little differently today. That one sit a little different. It did with me as I was getting ready for this. You know, I think it's interesting. You have a servant who owes an unpayable debt, right? The master forgives the entire amount. But then that same servant violently demands repayment for a much smaller debt from a fellow servant. We have been forgiven for so much, and yet we turn around and we find ways to unforgive people. That's not the right way. We have been forgiven for so much, but whenever we have some type of offense, like somebody living in the wrong town, we have issue. We have issue. I think it's an interesting piece to consider here, in that releasing a debt can be so challenging for us. You see, the story of the unmerciful servant, there's a couple of verses beforehand, and like I have two different translations. So depending on the translation you have, this is worded a little differently. I just want to call your attention to it. But you see, Jesus gets to this story because there's a question that Peter asks right before. So if you'll just turn back a couple of verses here with me to Matthew 18, verses 21 and 22. It says, Then Peter came to Jesus and said, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to seven? I think Peter was feeling generous at the time. Now, NIV reads, Jesus answered, I tell you, not seven times, but 77 times. That's quite a bit more for those of you that are not good with numbers. Just know that 77 is more, significantly more than seven, right? But I looked and and there's other translations that do this, but New King James Version tells the story. Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to seven times. Verse 22, Jesus said to him, I say to you, I do not say to you up to seven times, but up to 70 times seven. How many times shall I forgive? Um, so the idea is this, is that you got to forgive a lot. You got to forgive a lot. Well, yes. Peter had a pretty big faux pas just a few days later, right? When he's like, "I'll never deny you," and then he denies, right? Like there are these different challenges. So with this we have 77 or 70 times 7. The idea is this, is that we have to forgive a lot, right? Forgiveness is not about keeping count. Forgiveness is about losing count. Have you ever like, I don't know, I was doing this last night. Trace is gone, so all the different routines in the household are blown up. Like, I go to bed and I'm counting sheep. Have you ever tried to count sheep before? Have you ever lost count counting sheep? Like there's times that stuff like that, like that. And I'm going to suggest to you that it's forgiveness is somewhat similar. If you've ever counted sheep, what was the number that you ended up with? That you don't remember. You just keep doing it. You keep doing it until you fall asleep, right? That's how it goes. Now I'm going to take a moment here, and this is going to seem a little odd. It may seem a little out of place, but and it's going to seem somewhat unrelated right now. But my question to you, Taryn and I started cleaning yesterday. Part of that cleaning included the refrigerator. My question to you is, how long are leftovers good for? 2 weeks, did I hear? 2 weeks, okay. How much milk? Okay. Till they go bad? Okay. Till, till they turn green? I had, I got to be careful how I tell this story. This has the capacity to really gross you out. A guy that I graduated high school with calls his mom, or is talking on his phone to his mom, and his mom said, "Well, did you find something for lunch?" And he said, "Yeah, I just had the spaghetti that was in the refrigerator." And she said, "Oh my goodness, that's been in there forever. Was it okay?" And he said, "Yeah, there was some stuff on top. I just scraped that off." What's what's the appropriate time? 2 days? 2 weeks? Let me ask you this. How many of you did some type of celebrating for the new year? Anybody? If you celebrated for the new year and you had some leftovers and they're in your fridge, are they still good? No. No. 18 days. Is that what it is? 18? Whatever it's been, right? Yeah, like what's acceptable? Now, I don't know about you, but like Sharon and I doing this work, we have to go in there, and there's times that we see something, and we're like, how long has this been in here? And we don't know. But I want you to think about this. So we just put it back in and we wait. Trace can rule on it when she gets home. She'll be like, it's okay, it's not okay, it's whatever. Like, somehow well, this is a bad example. I like potato chips. Every once in a while I'll go to the store, I'll buy chip dip to go with the potato chips. Now the chip dip, if it comes in a container, that can last till the expiration date, right? It's not just when I open it. Although most of the time when I open, I just eat the whole thing. That's like separate issue, right? But like that's where we are. My question is, what happens if you don't clean out your fridge? Huh? If you don't clean out your fridge, the answer I'll give you, if you don't clean out your fridge will become nasty and useless. Would you agree? And may even, nasty may include smell bad, right? And I'm going to ask you this morning, do you think that there could be possibly any connection between leftovers and unforgiveness? Do you think? Do you think there could be any possibility? Could there be any connection? There's some offense that happens, you put it away, you put it in the fridge. Is that possible? Is there a connection? Is there a possibility of any connection? Because I'm going to tell you, I think there could be. I think there absolutely could be a connection. I think that we can carry offenses for far too long. And I'm going to tell you, I think that we become like those leftovers. If we carry offenses for far too long, then we can become nasty and useless as well. Now, I realize that that can be an uncomfortable thought. And it's probably more of an uncomfortable thought now than what it would have been 3 months ago when we started studying forgiveness. Because what I've come to realize over the last however many months that we've done this is that I have a lot, and I mean a lot, of forgiving to do. Anybody agree? Anybody else realize you got some unforgiving to do?
How do you actually forgive? You can say you forgive them, but to actually to let it go, that's the problem.
Well, it's to let it go. It's let it go. It's let it go. Um, we can look at it again, but we took 3 weeks to look at how do you forgive small offenses, medium offenses, and large offenses. There's different mechanisms that we can look at to do that. I don't know if you were here for those ones, my friend, but yeah, there are. There's some things that you can just forget about. Like there's the small ones. The big stuff, you need some help. You need people to come alongside you. And it still take, that's why it's 70 times 7. It takes time. It's not, there's not a magic wand. It's not a magic wand. Oh,
I noticed it, Captain, so when I get up in the morning, I go, that actually, Captain, but that's the first thing I see in the morning. I look in the mirror.
mm-hmm,
I don't look at myself.
mm-hmm.
I look at that forgiveness.
Yeah, yeah.
I might not even be able to forgive in this lifetime.
It's someone's going to take some time. Sometimes we got to just we got to spend that time with God. Let Him change our heart. No, it's not. That's why we spent 14 weeks or 50, whatever this has been, and we're still not done. Right? I want you to know that if you are carrying unforgiveness, there is a cost to it. There's a cost to it. And the cost is not that it's going to impact our belief in God, but the cost to it is it's going to undermine our usefulness to God. It's going to undermine our usefulness. You see, God has work for each of us to do. Do you agree?
Yeah.
He has work for each of us to do. But when we struggle with unforgiveness, and I think we all do, I think we all struggle with unforgiveness. What we do is we disqualify ourselves from doing some of those things. Think, and this is going off script, but think of the story of Jonah. God says to him, Jonah, I have a job for you. Jonah says, sounds good. What is it? Go to Nineveh. Nope, don't like them. Right? His usefulness declined. He goes through a time of correction. Then you see him, he goes to Nineveh. He gives the story. He says what's going to happen. Nineveh changes, and he's still mad. I don't know about you, but I can identify with Jonah. Unforgiveness can force us to avoid people. Unforgiveness will make us resist obedience to God. And unforgiveness will shrink our influence and the impact that we can have all around us. The end result is that we don't reach people that we could reach. And I made a list here of some groups that maybe you don't like and you won't reach because of unforgiveness. I started out with Duke University. I'm like, there are a bunch of people that dislike Duke University. Any of them in here? You're all, okay, that's a bad example. We're getting to college basketball season, so I figured, Duke becomes an easy target for people to dislike for whatever reason. Hmm?
Thinking pool, Duke usually been out pretty hard.
Well, yeah, yep, yep. Some, I put on my list Union City fans, right? There's some people that Cambridge, right? There's some people Cleveland Browns fans. It's easy to struggle with unforgiveness with them, right? There's like, and I say that with a little bit of humor, but it's less humorous. There's some people that take that very seriously. How about what if you have a know-it-all in-law? Does that create some type of barrier? Or a know-it-all neighbor? What if somebody is what if somebody has a different political view? I'll suggest anybody that has been close to politics in their lifetime has found a reason to be offended at what some opposition thinks. That becomes a limitation. I was thinking about this, and there's things like races and ethnicities. I actually put a note here: wartime propaganda. I've had the opportunity to watch some of the propaganda films from World War II. It's interesting how they portrayed the enemy. We become offended at people. We become offended at people who have different sexual orientations. And what does that do? When we carry that offense, that limits the impact God can have in us and through us. We're getting close to the end here, so I'm going to ask. Um, this is another verse that's translated different ways in different translations, but Proverbs 29:18, specifically in the King James, reads, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." My guess is you've heard that wisdom before. But when we don't have this vision of the future that we're going for, then what happens is people die off and they go in different ways. And I'm going to suggest to you that we need to have a vision of a future that involves forgiveness. Unforgiveness keeps us stuck in the past, but forgiveness can dramatically open our futures. I started off this morning telling you that I'm excited, and I think this is what has me excited. Because if we're willing to wrestle with this forgiveness, like, I don't know that we can imagine what God can do through us. I don't know that we can. I do know that if we refuse to forgive, we will limit what God will do through us. I'm reasonably confident with that. I want to come back to John 14:4, one of the first verses that we read today. I guess I'll read verses 1 through 4 again, but I want to draw your attention, put a heavy emphasis on verse 4. Jesus is talking to his disciples. He says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may also be where I am." Verse 4. This may deserve a highlight. You know the way to the place where I am going. And I'll ask you, do you know that way? Because today I think that way is forgiveness. I think forgiveness is the way to the place where he is going. And I think we have been challenged today through Jesus' teaching that, hey, we need to be serious about this. We need to be serious about this. Now, a couple of weeks ago, as we got towards the end of the lesson, I asked if by show of hands, and I think I actually had you, I think I had you close your eyes. And I said, close your eyes and raise your hand if you have somebody that you need to forgive. And I'm going to tell you, when you did that, practically every hand went up. That's for those of you that didn't raise your hand. That's not to make you feel guilty. I was surprised. I then went on and I said, keep your eyes closed, but if you want to move forward with forgiveness, are you willing to stand up? And to my surprise, a bunch of people stood up. I didn't know what I was completely unprepared for that. I think we have a same invitation this morning. I think we have a similar invitation this morning about, do you have somebody that you need to forgive? And I hazard a guess that if you've been here multiple weeks over the last several months, you've probably had a couple of people come to mind. And so I want to encourage you, or I want to invite you. Are you willing to forgive that person one time? Anybody willing to forgive that person one time? Would you be willing to forgive that person one more time? I think that's our challenge. That as we move through this, can we forgive that person one more time? One more time. Because if we do, there's no telling what God could do through that. Now, I know that there's many of us who may need more help than others with who we want to forgive. I know that. And if you need help to forgive, I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to ask you to take out your phone. This is where I expected people to pick up their phones. I'm going to ask you to open a text message to yourself. If you don't send text messages, get a piece of paper. You can write this down. But send yourself a text message that says, "Today, I forgive whoever for whatever." And you may need a little more than that. You may have to say, "God, help me to forgive and let go. Provide me the resources to be free." And when you've done that, you hit send. And you may have to do it again tomorrow and the day after. You may forget for a couple of days. You may come back to it. I don't know about you, but there's some people that have offended me that there's so many people that have offended me that I can forget that they've offended me until they pop back up, like I see them again. Like, oh, now I remember I'm offended by you. Like, anybody? Just me? Okay, yeah. I'm an expert. Expert, right? That's where we're going to end today. I want you to, where I want you to wrap up today is with the idea of the possibility of what life could be like when we forgive people. And to recognize that what that looks like may be so beyond what you can even imagine. So with that, that's where we're going to close today. I'm going to hit stop here, maybe.